Welcome and thank you for coming to my presentation. In the summer of 1973, President Richard Nixon created a federal agency to consolidate drug control activities. The DA was created to deal with America's growing drug problem and crime outbreak. The DA's motive is to stop the sale of illegal drugs, trafficking, investigate major crimes inside the United States and internationally, and to shelter communities from continual drug use and violence. DEA also teams up with numerous major significant law enforcement agencies, such as local, state, and federal, and foreign enforcement agency, to seize criminals from smuggling illicit drugs in our communities. The Controlled Substance Act was passed by the 91st United States Congress and signed into law by President Richard Nixon. The legislation created 5 schedules with varying qualifications for a substance to be included in each. The DA determines which substances are added or removed. Schedule 1 drugs are high abuse potential, no accepted medical use, no accepted safe use. Schedule 2 to 5 drugs, high to low abuse potential, accepted medical use, physical and psychic dependence. The DEA training is located in Quanto, Virginia. The training is an 18-week program that places strong emphasis on leadership, ethics, and human dignity. Students receive 122 hours of firearms training, including marksmanship, weapon safety, tactical shooting, and deadly force decision-making. During the training, students are required to apply their classroom knowledge in serious and increasingly demanding practical exercises. In order to graduate, students must maintain an academic average of 80%, pass the firearms qualification test, pass physical task tests, and demonstrate leadership. The DEA wants special agents well prepared for any situation they have to face, which can mean life or death. At first, in 1973, the DEA special agents were 1,470, and by 1975, it was 2,135. DEA budget started at $74.9 million, and by 1975, it doubled to $140.9 million. The first year was over, and the DEA kept increasing their budget to a huge magnitude in order to get all kinds of people with different backgrounds to join the DEA. The majority of the people joined or were recruited that have served the military or served as an officer. Not only was the DEA increasing the agents and the budget, the DEA was improving on all fronts, including training, aviation, weapons, and the computer base of all the data of all the drug traffickers and other useful information. Everything about the DEA had advanced, and it had taken more responsibilities like linking terrorism and drug trafficking. The DEA had a worldwide presence and continued to get bigger. It has 223 domestic offices and 21 divisions throughout the United States, and 86 foreign offices in 67 countries. The Medellin cartel is an organized network of drug smugglers originated in Medellin, Colombia, and was the major cartel that was pushing tons of cocaine into the U.S. The DEA tasked to enforce and combat the drug trafficking organization became more complicated. The Medellin cartel used intimidation to keep anybody from speaking out against them. In Medellin alone, 1,698 people were murdered, and the following year the number more than doubled to 3,500. The main 6 leaders were Fabio Ochoa Vasquez, Juan Ochoa Vasquez, Miguel Rodriguez, and Pablo Escobar. In this picture, we're looking at one of Escobar's headquarters where they made most of their cocaine. In March of 1984, another very important discovery signaled just how sophisticated the Medellin cartel's operation had become. Colombia's law enforcement officials conducted a raid against Quiet Village. It was much more than a cocaine lab located 160 miles from San Jose. What they found was a fully equipped cocaine factory, completed with living quarters for 100 people, several storage rooms for chemicals and supplies, and workshops for automobiles and airplanes. With this efficient production line, traffickers were pushing 220 pounds of cocaine a month, putting $12 billion in the coffers of the Medellin cartel in only 2 years. Authorities seized more than 10 tons of cocaine and cocaine base at Quiet Village and found more labs in similar surrounding village. The police destroyed drugs and materials estimated to be worth $1.2 billion. After a long and exhausting search on December 2nd, 1993, the Colombian National Police, with the help of the DEA, killed Pablo Escobar. Escobar's exact position was determined using electronic directional finding equipment. With authorities moving in, a firefight with Escobar and his bodyguards, Alvaro de Jesus, occurred. The two fugitives attempted to escape by running across the roofs of connecting houses to reach a back street, but both were shot and killed by the Colombian National Police and the DEA. Another major drug cartel is the Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel takes advantage of the demand on drugs and the people's willingness to commit crimes. The cartel operates to the U.S. border. The drug trafficking in Mexico has added to the unemployment and low wages in Mexico. This gives the Sinaloa cartel an advantage because thousands of men are willing to risk their lives to get a cut of the profit from the drug trade. The people living in poverty and do not want to live that lifestyle, and they know that drug trafficking promises quick wealth. The United States had to act fast, so they directed vast anti-drug efforts to the U.S.-Mexican border. No matter how many strategic crackdowns, the Sinaloa cartel proved resilient. The Sinaloa cartel was very flexible and adjusted very quickly to any situation. They had plenty of money to invest in more sophisticated methods to smuggle drugs across the border. As seen here in the picture, the most advanced technologies in the Sinaloa cartel invented was the tunnels from the Mexican to the United States. They are called the narco tunnels. On February 27, 2002, U.S. officials discovered a 1,200-foot tunnel running between a private home in the far east of San Diego and a home in town of Tecate, Baja California. The Sinaloa cartel had gone to such an extent of sophistication of technology to smuggle the drugs to the United States. It is creative, it is simple and low-tech, but it gets the job done. They will do anything necessary to get the money and drugs across the border. The cartel strategies are becoming more complex to be ahead of authorities. Not only are the cartels coming up with new ideas, they are corrupting Mexican officials. The culture of payoffs is growing on both sides of the border. It is very effective for the cartels to bribe Mexican and American officials. It is dangerous for the officials to agree because they could potentially get killed or their family members. The cartels bribe most of the Mexican officials because they get paid less than the U.S. officials. The cartels try to find ways to make connections with the U.S. officials since American corruption can go further towards making huge profits for everyone. Just one corrupt U.S. official can essentially wave past tons of semi-trucks of drugs, and it can be a huge profit for the cartels. Not only is the corruption a Mexican thing, it takes place on both sides of the border. The motive is simply greed. Those who do not follow the cartels to bribe, they have to be in the protective shield of the border police. The strategy has long been the same, plata or plomo, which translates silver or lead. In other words, the officials either take the bribe or the bullet to the head. In this picture, you see one of the major bosses from the Sinaloa cartel. It's Joaquin Guzman Loera, El Chapo. Is known for drug trafficking, murder, money laundering. The Sinaloa cartel controls the state of Sinaloa and the neighboring states of Sonora, Jalisco, Nayarit, Colima, and Chihuahua. On June 9, 1993, Joaquin Guzman was arrested at the border of Mexico and Guatemala after being incarcerated in La Palma prison and being sentenced to more than 20 years. He was sent to Puerto Grande prison in Jalisco. He escaped there in February of 2001. Finally, after many years, Guzman was arrested again by Mexican authorities on February 22, 2014. He was found inside the fourth-floor condo in beachfront Miramar condominium in Mazatlan, Sinaloa. Afterwards, Mexican officials turned the Chapo over to the U.S. authorities. And in this video, it shows him being captured.
Sight, the most powerful drug lord in the world in handcuffs after more than a decade as a wanted man. Law enforcement's long quest to capture Joaquin Guzman ended at this hotel at 6:40 yesterday morning. Mexican authorities, acting on intelligence from American immigration and drug enforcement agents, arrested him on the fourth floor of this hotel in a resort town 600 miles from Mexico City. Guzman's criminal resume, infamous, thought to be responsible for 25% of drugs entering the U.S., controlling an astounding 80% of illegal drugs on the streets of Chicago. So rich, he made the Forbes magazine billionaires list. So vicious that nearly 80,000 people have died in drug-related violence in Mexico, and that's not including so many more from drug overdoses. El Chapo bribed his way out of prison 13 years ago, escaping in a laundry basket. He always seemed one step ahead of authorities. Just a week ago, he evaded capture with an amazing getaway from police through a network of underground tunnels.
He has a lot of protection around him, both as security guards and people that are willing to protect him because he has a lot of money and assets to throw around.
He was part of a cartel network creative in their smuggling, submarine, boats, airplanes. A year-long Univision investigation reported by our sister network, Fusion, revealed how it worked.
From an 18-wheeler to aircraft, to U.S. mail, UPS, FedEx, to the trunk of a car, to the backpack of an 18-year-old riding a bus. Chapo does not play by the rules. He has unlimited resources.
You got what you're looking for. I saw firsthand how cartels operate at the southwest border checkpoint. A truck of furniture was actually hiding more than a ton of marijuana. There is so much drugs coming from Mexico, it has to be destroyed at secret locations like this. The Mexican cartels have turned parts of that country into a war zone, and Guzman was perhaps the most ruthless, often compared to Colombian kingpin Pablo Escobar.
You see all this chaos and all this destruction and death and come from this one guy. You go, oh my God.
He faces multiple indictments in the U.S., but will the Mexicans ever really let him go, considering all those dead people in that country?
This is a different cartel that operates in Mexico too. The Tijuana cartel, they are known for being aggressive, undeniably the most violent cartel more than any other drug cartel from Mexico. The Tijuana cartel extends to 7 states throughout Mexico and responsible for the transportation, importation, and distribution of multi-ton quantities of cocaine, marijuana, and as well as large quantities of heroin and methamphetamine into the United States and Mexico. Arellano family is made up of 7 brothers and 4 sisters who inherited the organization from Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo. Upon his imprisonment in 1985 for the murder of the DA agent Special Agent Enrique Camarera, the Tijuana cartel was extorting and kidnapping too many civilians, for bringing heat on organized crime and disrupting the criminal enterprises and interests of the Tijuana cartel. The Mexican federal government responded by implementing Operation Tijuana, coordination carried out between the Mexican military and the municipal police forces in the area. Anti-Drug Abuse Act, enacted in November 18, 1988, and is a major law of the so-called war on drugs, passed by the U.S. Congress, which did 2 significant things: created the policy goal of a drug-free America and established the Office of National Drug Control Policy. The media campaign mentioned, in fact, later that became the National Youth Anti-Drug Media Campaign, with many anti-drug campaigns joining them. Preventing drug use before it begins is the most cost-effective, common-sense approach to promoting safe and healthy communities. The DEA also joined with the Sports Drug Awareness Program, an organization with professional athletes, to capture the attention of teenagers and help teenagers establish the message that drug use is dangerous or potentially fatal. The DEA also created Operation Clean Sweep, and it became mandatory overtime on Saturday to clean up meth labs or anywhere where they found contraband. One of the major busts the military had recently seized was 105 tons of marijuana. 11 people were arrested after a blazing gun battle between the Mexican Marines and the city of Tijuana. Marijuana was found in 6 different cargo holders in a warehouse. They were wrapped in 10,000 packages and had a street value of over $250 million. Another major bust was from Zenli Yigong, born in Shanghai, lived in Mexico and ran a pharmaceutical company. Authorities allege that he supplied Mexican drug cartels with massive quantities of chemical used to make the street drug methamphetamine. Police raided his luxurious Mexican city home in March, carting off what they said was $207 million, most of it in $100 bills that had been stashed behind false walls and closets. The U.S. government called it the largest single drug cash seizure the world has ever seen. For my 2-year plan, I plan on joining the Air Force JAG to be an attorney and hopefully to be stationed in Hawaii. For my career, I'd like to be a lawyer. Lawyers advise and represent individuals, businesses, government agencies, or legal issues and disputes. You need a 4-year undergraduate degree, 3 years of law school, passing the bar examination for every state in which you wish to practice, passing an ethics examination, and their salary is about $113,000 a year. I interviewed a DEA agent from Costa Rica, and I asked him what was his basic duties and responsibilities, and he said they investigate violations of federal law that involve controlled substances, illegal drugs, and drug abuse. I asked him what was a typical day at work, and he said there is no typical day at work. One day you could be spying on a suspect, another day you could be doing paperwork.
Okay, world history.
I created a date in this comment.
That's all good.
Dental health care for low-income groups. Dentistry began to be studied around 500 BC by Aristotle, but only had records of it until many years after. Barbers were the only ones to practice dentistry during this century. In 1840, the very first dental school was founded by Horace Hayden and Chapman Harris, named College of Dental Surgery. That same year, they created the Doctor of Dental Surgery degree. In 1883, National Association of Dental Examiners is founded by dental board members to establish standards and oversee licensing and dental practices. However, dentistry was still continuing to be introduced to the world. Dentistry was a new step for evolution that some people were not able to accept and understand quite yet. Dentistry was new to society and people were not certain as to what to think about it, as shown in this video.
Tooth decay and pain were believed most likely to come from demons and evil spirits, as were most other illnesses and calamities. But over time, culture sought answers and solutions to the problem of tooth decay. As early as 7000 BC, bow drills were found, evidence of early dental attempts. Sumerians in 5000 BC believed due to holes found in decayed teeth that toothworms were responsible. This belief was commonly adopted by both Eastern and Western medical practitioners until as late as 1728.
Dentistry began to evolve quickly after it was accepted by society. In the 19th century, dentistry began to expand. In 1924, the first American Dental Assistants Association was founded by Juliet Southward and other females. Women were only allowed to be assistants, as shown in the picture above. In the 1970s, the dentists were threatening the government. They wanted to be provided with the resources needed for dental health care, or else they would go on a strike. At this time period, dentists had such scarce amount of resources that they weren't even able to treat wealthy class or give the wealthy class proper oral treatments. Even in the modern day, low-income groups are more likely to be sick and receive poorer medical treatment once ill. Low-income groups do not receive the dental care they need and many times suffer major consequences such as gum disease or loss of teeth. Some of the reasons that low-income groups contain unhealthy dental health are bad nutrition and an unclean environment. Oral health is being impacted through nutrition, sanitation, and school curricula, where school teachers and community workers learn how to incorporate oral health education into their own activities. However, dentistry would be a failure if it weren't for the evolution of technology. The beginning of dentistry consisted of very inadequate and non-useful technology. However, throughout the years, dental technology began to evolve. In 1880, the tube toothpaste was finally invented and hit the markets fast. As before, there were only liquid or powder formulas used to keep teeth healthy. Later in 1937, William Taggart invented a cast waxing machine, allowing dentists to make precision cast fillings and implants in order to reduce pain. That same year, the dental X-ray was created, which developed a much better understanding of the mouth and its functions, as shown in the picture above. Dentists had long considered women, particularly good-looking women, to be the ideal candidates for dental assistants and hygienist positions. Some male dentists got a sense of power over having women dental assistants. These dental assistants were a very important asset in the dental field. As technology evolved, these so-called auxiliary helpers were a necessity to dentists because they provided an enormous competitive advantage to their employer by increasing the net income of their offices. However, women began to seek a more important role in dentistry. Women wanted to become the dentist. Women dentists could become role models for others and help women's roles to develop. Women were not the only ones becoming dentists. Different races were also joining the profession. In a way, there was also an evolution of dentists. Dentists were beginning to evolve in the dental field by accepting broad diversity within their career. As before, preserving the race, gender, and reputation of mostly white and an overwhelming amount of male dentists was very important in order to keep dentistry an elite group. The traditional dentists did not want diversity in their field because diversity meant low-income groups were also welcome in dentistry. Dentists wanted to maintain a high social class profession. Nowadays, however, any race and gender are allowed to become dentists while continuing to be an elite group. Even with dentistry evolving, many people continue to only seek dentistry for the cosmetic benefits it provided. Public interest in oral health originated from a concern to conform with certain cultural ideals of body image, especially in the symbolically important area of the mouth. Appearance rather than health was important. However, low-income groups could not afford to pay as much as the wealthy class was willing to pay in order to have these dental cosmetic benefits. Society was focused on having a perfect appearance rather than the health risks associated with poor dental health care. Only those who could afford dental treatment were able to set foot into a dentist's office. Meanwhile, low-income groups were suffering from oral diseases, infection, and pain that came as a consequence of lack of treatment. Before dentistry became a profession, many barbers or doctors took it into their own hands to reduce toothaches and oral pain. The barbers and doctors experimented with homemade remedies on patients who were desperate for some pain relief. Home remedies were being used to cure toothaches such as sap screens, leeches, peppermint, honey, and dough, and many others. Sap screens were used to numb the mouth in order to feel no pain. Leeches helped stop the bleeding from the gums. Peppermint, honey, and dough helped with the healing process after tooth extraction. The reason that no medicine was being created quite yet was because there was no recorded studies to help create pain relief, which caused doctors to invent their own home remedies. The pain relief medicine consisted of natural resources that never actually served a useful purpose. Low-income groups continue to neglect dental health care, which in turn are starting to cause families and parents to not support the development of oral health care habits for the new generations. It is common for parents to give their firstborn child much support and be stricter about their eating habits and dental care procedures. However, after the second child, the parent tends to give their child's oral health less of an importance. Children who grow up without any guidance from a parent or guardian tend to take on bad habits. These bad habits will eventually lead to diseases that will not only affect the mouth, but other body parts such as the heart and brain. In this video, there is a clear example of how children neglect dental care.
How often
often do you brush, Ralph?
3 times a day, sir.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
You're right. I don't brush. I don't brush.
Let's look at a picture book. The big book of British smiles.
That's enough. That's enough.
This doesn't mean every British person has bad teeth. However, sometimes dentists are the ones who neglect the low-income groups and their children. Low-income groups are usually the ones who suffer the most when it comes to lack of affordable dental health care. It has been a long, difficult process throughout the years to provide low-income groups with the same benefits as wealthy patients. Dentists did not want to include low-income groups in their system because these groups were causing them to lose a fair amount of money in their budget. Low-income groups could not afford the cost of dental care, and dentists were forced to cope with new dental insurance plans being made. Dentists would not be earning much of a profit with low-income patients. At this point, dentists were interested in the money they were earning than the amount of low-income patients they were helping. Dentists wanted dentistry to be a privilege instead of something that was granted to a person. Some dentists actually joined this profession because of the status quo it gave them. They were automatically part of the upper class because of how elite their career actually was. Dentists obtained a sense of power over controlling who was eligible for dental care and who was not. Originally, dentistry and its practices started through priests, who practiced it in order to maintain the prestige of priesthood. Even priests were segregating the high class from the low-income groups through dentistry and using the opportunity to become members of a higher social class. Dentistry was not being used to treat those who required dental care, but instead to distinguish the poor from the wealthy. However, segregation between the low-income classes was not the only problem in dentistry. There was also limited staff and equipment in the dental field. Traditional dentists tended to only promote oral health within their communities, as the new dentists went out of their way to help low-resource neighborhoods. The dentists were trying to promote a better, stronger health system for only the high class, rather than helping the low class. Dentists argued within themselves on where and who to spend the money on. And while most traditional dentists opted for money to go directly to the wealthy class, the New Age dentists fought for it to be split evenly between low-income groups as well as the wealthier classes. However, after dentists decided to work together and treat low-income groups, there was still the lack of dental equipment. Financial and material resources for programs were few, and those that did exist were likely to be reduced even further as a result of economic adjustment. Dentists have taken it upon themselves to spread dental care through high-risk communities. They have designed dental facilities that reach out to these communities instead of the communities reaching out to them. These facilities are placed at schools, community centers, and other public areas. Dentists target diseases before they have started. Some diseases start from tobacco smoking, which has caused many dentists to target this health risk. Smoking-based prevention programs have gone up in schools and public facilities, which help teens have less of a possibility of catching an oral disease. Some dentists use new programs that create dental tools at a very low cost, which make their own explorers, mouth mirrors, scalers, and other tools in order to help the poor without requiring them to pay a tariff. Programs like this are designed to have a very low cost for the dentist and no cost to the patient. Dentists have also created mobile facilities to cover areas without local dental facilities nearby. These mobile clinics are housed in trucks that give people without insurance teeth cleanings and treatments. They target only low-income and high-risk areas of the city. The purpose of mobile clinics is to offer immediate care to those who do not have means of transportation to and from a dentist's office. With mobile clinics, there is no room for excuses. Anyone who needs care will receive treatment. However, there are not many mobile clinics due to the lack of money and resources that some dentists have. Dentists do not financially benefit from these mobile clinics, and 9 times out of 10, they receive no money for their services. Mobile clinics work because they take down cultural barriers. The government is now creating a completely new system of dental health care by designing new programs aiming to help low-income groups. Some programs that are being created are Children's Special Health Care Services, Healthy Kids, Medicaid, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield. Children's Special Healthcare Services is a program that provides oral medical coverage to low-income groups at a lower cost than average coverage. There are no restrictions to these services, and anyone that needs dental health care can apply and will be treated immediately. Blue Cross and Blue Shield are insurances created to start designing dental service corporations, which are made up of prepaid service plans offered to low-income groups. These dental insurance plans adjust to the patient's budget. Due to limited resources, community members themselves are creating new dental programs. They have started attacking the problem at its roots, children's habits. Society is reaching out to its children and providing them dental health care at a very young age. Schools are now taking action using a new program called School Water Fluoridation, which with parent consent forces students to use fluoride, which in turn helps prevent oral diseases. This new program consists of water fountains that contain a nozzle with pre-mixed fluoride and water. Schools have also begun to provide dental supplements in form of fluoride tablets, which are given to students by their teachers. These tablets only cost the schools $2.35 a year per child. The results are impressive, and they are catching the attentions of many other schools, which will soon start to adapt these programs into their own schools. Another program that is in use to help the dental health of children is Salient Placement Program. Schools that are in the poor neighborhoods are the ones that mostly participate in programs such as these because they have the students who benefit the most from these programs. Salient and fluoride programs have also been implemented for low-income children or community members for free. Salient programs range from fluoride treatments to cavity fillings and sometimes some oral surgery. There, however, are not many Salient programs available due to the lack of money. There is a noticeable amount of improvement in some of the population's dental health once these programs begin. If dentistry continues to evolve and expand its services past social class barriers, low-income groups will gain a strong dental health. My 2-year plan, I will be either attending UC Riverside, CSU Channel Island, San Francisco State, or Monterey Bay to get my general ed done and hopefully become a dentist. A dentist is a healthcare professional who provides preventive and restorative treatments for problems affecting the mouth and teeth. Bachelor's degree is required, and enrollment in dental school accredited by the American Dental Association is as well. The first 2 years are devoted to lab and class instruction. In the last 2 years, students complete a dental rotation externship, which is usually in dental clinics and allows students to treat patients under supervision. Dentist salary is around $105,000 a year. I interviewed Christopher Day Comfort. I asked him a few questions, and he says his responsibility as a dentist is to take care of dental procedures and treatments, and he runs the business side as well. He told me that the training and education never ends. It starts with an undergraduate degree and then graduate school. It's a lifelong commitment to learning. He told me that I should be able to sit down, read, write, and do math very well. Eye-hand coordination is important, and thinking in 3D. He also told me to play video games because playing video games will help with the movement, hand gestures, and their coordination. His favorite part of the day is chatting with patients, and he likes knowing that he can make a difference in people's lives. His least favorite part of the job is being around his staff when they get cranky because they do not cooperate. And he also advised me to intern in the dental office and major in what I want to major in as long as I have fun.
Check my answers.
I think so.
You stumble across the statistic of every profession in the world that has a high suicide rate?
No, but I won't pull it. No, I don't.
Welcome to my presentation about bootlegging and prohibition, then and now. Prohibition started with the passing of the 18th Amendment and the passing of the Volstead Act. In this video, it shows footage of the start of prohibition. Here, many people are hired to break open thousands of containers filled with alcohol. But even with all the alcohol lost, there were always places to get alcohol. People went to places called speakeasies, which were secret bars and clubs. Here you can see that speakeasies had a very high security and often needed secret passwords or codes to get into. Prohibition began with the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. It was passed in October of 1919. The 18th Amendment was passed to try and stop the public from drinking so much. With the passing of the 18th Amendment, the U.S. was dry. The U.S. government thought that prohibition would slow the U.S. from drinking so much, but instead it only made people break the law in order to get out. As the amendment was passed, the Volstead Act came into play. The Volstead Act eliminated drunkenness, got rid of saloons, and prevented absenteeism. It was a way for the system to enforce the 18th Amendment. Before the Volstead Act, there was no law saying they could enforce the 18th Amendment. As soon as the Volstead Act was passed, many Americans gave up on their businesses. Without alcohol to sell, many businesses went under. Bill McCoy was a good kid. He never got into trouble, but was always fascinated by making money. He was a family-oriented man. After school, Bill McCoy went into business with his brother, Randolph. They were partners in a rail freight industry, but sold the company when it started going under because of prohibition. He called himself an honest lawbreaker and never paid any law enforcement, government officials, or politicians for protection. Though he was one of the best and most notorious rum runners, he never once drank alcohol. The McCoy business could no longer transport alcohol due to the 18th Amendment. Not only did prohibition limit McCoy's business, but he also had to compete with newer transportation technology, such as buses and automated railcars. With technology moving forward, McCoy's rail freighting business fell behind. He had seen people profit off of prohibition by illegally selling alcohol, and being more organized, McCoy knew he could do better. Therefore, with what little money he had left from selling his freight business, he moved to Gloucester, Massachusetts. As soon as he was established in Massachusetts, he began building his rum-running empire. He would bring thousands of gallons of alcohol from the Bahamas on his 130-foot boat named Arthurian. He learned that he could buy grains and certain ingredients needed for the production of alcohol from the Bahamas, anchor his boat a couple hundred feet offshore, and allow small boats disguised as fishermen to unload his cargo and bring it on. McCoy brought his cargo to several small coves and would only move it when it's stormy or during the night. He would cove hop all the way until he could unload it into one of his alcohol distribution lines. The law enforcement officers finally figured out what he was doing. The police got information from one of McCoy's employees and found out where McCoy's shipments were coming in. They stationed their boats exactly where they knew the shipment was coming in. When McCoy came in, they attempted to arrest him, but instead of being arrested, McCoy tried to run. The Coast Guard shot down McCoy and his boat. George Remus was born in Germany, November 14, 1874, but immigrated to Chicago at the age of 5. When he turned 14, he worked in a pharmacy to help support his family. Remus went to school and studied criminal defense. During his time as a defense attorney, he saw how much money other bootleggers made. Remus had a working knowledge of his clients' illegal distribution networks and decided to get into that business for the money. Remus remembered his work as a pharmaceutical aide and how pharmacies were able to sell medicinal whiskey. Many bootleggers sold alcohol from pharmacies because it was an easy way to acquire alcohol. Remus decided to buy many pharmacies around Cincinnati. George Remus sold whiskey and other alcohols from the pharmacies he bought. It was legal to supply a pharmacy with alcohol, which made the bootlegging very easy. He created one of the largest crime syndicates in Cincinnati. In 1923, when a rival bootlegging operation raided Remus's building, Remus was prepared and had hired guns ready to fight off the raiders. In 1925, Remus was tried in court for thousands of violations of the Volstead Act. The jury found him guilty only after 2 hours, and he served over 2 years in prison. The public was only told what the media wanted to show them. After he got out of prison, he moved to Covington, Kentucky, where he lived out his life peacefully. Much like McCoy and Remus, Al Capone was a bootlegger, but he was also one of the biggest leaders in organized crime. He was born in Brooklyn and at a young age began a life with the infamous 5 Points game. In his early 20s, he moved to Chicago and became a bodyguard for his trusted friend, Johnny Torrio. Torrio was related to one of the heads of the gang. He was the heir to the throne. If the head of the gang was to be killed or die, he would take control. But soon enough, Torrio was moved to the head of the gang. In January of 1925, Capone was jumped and beaten. He was shaken but not seriously injured. Torrio gave him a couple days off to rest. Capone wasn't even the head boss, and people were already hunting him down. 12 days later, Torrio was returning from a shopping trip when he was shot multiple times. He made a full recovery, but signed a resignation and left Capone in charge of the gang. Capone often told people that called him cruel, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I'm kind to everyone. But when someone is unkind to me, weak is not what you're going to remember about me." Capone was cruel when it came to his business, but he donated most of the money he made to charity and opened soup kitchens and schools all over the city. Capone was a gangster and a lawbreaker, but he wasn't a bad one. Many people believe Al Capone was to blame for the St. Valentine's Day massacre. The police organized to kill the head of the boss of the North Side Gang on February 14, 1929, and Al Capone was blamed for the massacre. A rival gang dressed as cops came in to arrest the Northsiders. By the time Capone heard about their plan, it was too late to escape. The imposters lined the gang members up against the wall and executed them. The impersonators made a false report saying they got on the scene and saw Capone fleeing with guns in hand. Capone was put on trial and found guilty. He was sent to Alcatraz for his time in prison. He contracted syphilis, and by the time he made it out of jail, he was left at the mental age of a 12-year-old. He later died from the mental effects. Capone was a big leader of organized crime. He started his gang, the 5 Points Gang, and the gang is still around today. Much like Bill McCoy and George Remus, Capone had a huge impact on the livelihood of all people in New York. His impact is still around today. Prohibition supporters were initially surprised by what did not come to pass during the dry era. When the law went into effect, they expected sales of clothing and household goods to skyrocket. Real estate developers and landlords expected rents to rise as saloons closed and neighborhoods improved. In the next 2 years, the revenue from alcohol was over $92 million. Over $92 million was lost due to prohibition. Much like the prohibition of alcohol in the early 20s and 30s, marijuana could be saving the U.S.'s economy issues. Marijuana is made illegal and could bring millions in revenue back to the U.S. In an article by the Huffington Post, economists have looked into the positive effects of legalization of marijuana and the economy. More than 300 economists, including 3 Nobel laureates, have signed a petition calling attention to the findings of a paper by Harvard economist Jeffrey Miron, which suggests that if the government legalized marijuana, it would save over $7.7 billion annually. If this is not enough to bring the national debt into the positive, but it is a good start. Where there are laws prohibiting what people want, there are people who will break these laws to get what they want. There is a huge problem with illegal drugs in the U.S. Many problems with the drugs come from other countries, from the drug cartels in Mexico to many drug traffickers overseas. Drug prohibition not only lessens the U.S. revenue, but it also creates violence. Gangs and other forms of organized crime form to produce illegal drugs. Most of the drug trade comes from Mexico. Mexico has been a certified drug enforcement partner with the U.S., but Mexico has done nothing to stop the drug trafficking going on between our countries. The U.S. has given over $6 billion to help start the Drug Enforcement Agency in Mexico. Not only has drug trade increased, but the enforcement on drug trafficking has decreased. In a meeting of his Senate Appropriations Subcommittee, Chairman Judd Gregg said drug arrests have declined 14%. The number of poppy fields destroyed and drug laboratories has fallen. Not only has the war on drugs been a dangerous war, but it has been a losing war for the U.S. The prohibition of marijuana could be both good and bad for the economy and society. Though illegal sale and use of drugs is very dangerous, without the restrictions and safety laws of a regulated drug, many things could happen. Misprepared drugs or hazardous drugs could be put into circulation and could be catastrophic. But if drugs were regulated, there would be many safety regulations to protect the user. Not only protect the user, but protect the distributor and producer. During the 1920s, the U.S. government experimented with the ban of alcohol. Not only did this cause millions of dollars in lost revenue, but it also saw a rise in crimes and gangs. Drug enforcement costed a total of $22 billion in the Reagan era, and another $45 billion in the 4 years of the Bush administration. Even medical professionals have prescribed marijuana to many of their patients. More than 70% of the U.S. cancer specialists said they would prescribe marijuana if it was legal. As seen in the graph on the right, over 52 people of the U.S. agree with the legalization of marijuana. Unlike many states, Colorado has been a leader in drug legalization. Colorado has shown a revenue of close to $40 million in recreational marijuana. Amendment 64 was passed on May 20th, 2011. In 2013, voters approved a ballot question, Proposition AA, that enacted a 15% excise tax and 10% sales tax on retail marijuana. The taxes from Proposition AA fund the building and running of the medical marijuana operations. In the graph to the right, you can see how much money the U.S. is spending on various things, law enforcement being the highest, taxes, total revenue loss, and at the end, total maximum revenue. In the past 4 years, people have changed their opinion on the legalization of marijuana. In the first graph, it shows how people have gone from only a 30% approval rate in 2000 to over a 50% approval rate in 2011. In the second graph, it shows how traffic fatalities have dropped since 2001. There was 741 traffic fatalities in 2000, but that number has dropped to only 481 today. For my interview, I interviewed retired Lieutenant Larry Enos from Santa Clara. I asked him what kind of job responsibilities he had. He responded with, "I was responsible for making sure the sergeant was having the deputies do their jobs, and that they had the equipment needed to complete the task." I asked him what skills were important, and he replied, "One of the most important skills, in my opinion, would be the ability to think clearly in a high-stress situation. Using the skills and knowledge obtained during your training to be a peace officer. Many of the stressful situations can be resolved by having a calm demeanor, at least on the outside." I asked him what his best day on the job was, and he said, "One of the best days of my job I didn't even know I had. I saved a young man's life. I didn't know this until 5 years after the fact. He was on an annual camping trip to a local state park. A park ranger who was conducting a daily campsite check stopped at their camp. He looked at me, the name listed for the site, and asked if I was the same guy who worked in Saratoga a few years back. I responded yes, to which he stated that I saved his life. I asked how I had done this, and he responded that I had given him a break once. treated him with respect. He continued by saying it made him think about what he had been doing, the people he was hanging out with, the path he was on, and how he needed to change. It was interesting and gratifying to know that I had somehow affected someone's life in a positive way. For my career, I plan on being a police officer. As a police officer, I'll be protecting people and changing people's lives for the better. The only requirement needed to apply for a police officer is a high school diploma. And here's a video of the training in the police academy.
It's definitely a life-changing aspect, entering in here. Every job that they've had before here is definitely a lot different. Every week I ask them for their feedback and what their goals are. In the beginning, they never expected anything like this. So for 20 weeks, it's extremely difficult for them to adjust the first couple of weeks. About halfway through, you can notice them changing.
I prepared myself, I ran, I did kickboxing. It's still a physical training because your body's not used to it.
Each day you're doing something different where you're challenging your body in different ways that you may not have. So I've taken my personal fitness from a very good level to now a very excellent level. You really do transform in 20 weeks. We have everything from one-on-one defense here, where you train in, which is a 4 days long, for 8 hours a day, 32 hour one-on-one defense.
It's prepared me knowing that I'm a female, I'm small, I can still do the job.
We have a 40-hour week EVOC course, emergency driving, very specific skills that you need. And you can do some things that I've never done in a car, it's a lot of fun. You learn what the car can do and what it can't do. And you definitely increase your driving abilities at the range. You learn how to handle your weapons, your weapon. The whole week that we use firearms was a real eye-opener for me in terms of learning certain stances, learning certain positions to stand when I use a firearm.
In this video, you see how hard the training is and how much effort they have to put in. The average salary of a police officer is $53,540 annually. The only education needed is to apply for a police officer position is a high school diploma or equivalent. There are many skills needed. You have to be fit enough to do your job, have experience with firearms, and be able to stay calm in a stressful situation. For my 2-year plan, I plan on going to Saracosa and taking general ed. After college, I plan on working towards becoming a police officer.
Oh, I need you.
My order.
You got it.
Just one for everybody.